So I have an update and it's a good one and I'm really excited to share it with you all, depending on which videos you watch of mine, because there is DIY, there is uni content, grad scheme content, rogue summer haul, either way. I have a full-time job. YouTube is my hobby. After uni, as the previous videos I listed sort of suggested, I went into a graduate scheme and I actually stayed with the company where I did my graduate scheme after I finished my grad scheme. And today I'm still employed by that same company. So recently, my company went through a restructure, and as scary as restructures can be, I was actually not that scared of it, as I'm still quite junior, which for me means that I'm very easily adaptable. You can throw me in whichever role as long as it sort of aligns with the path where I see myself going in the future. I can be a happy camper, if that makes sense. This in contrast to some of my more senior colleagues who have really established a niche in which they sort of function, and obviously stepping outside of that niche can be incredibly scary, and even the smallest change to that niche what they're so used to having can be a bit of a scary thing. Either way, I was working in insights, which I really enjoyed. Despite me really enjoying that role, it was not where I saw myself staying for the long term. I thought it was incredibly interesting, but I was drawn to a more strategical, analytical, numbery role than insights, whereas insights is a bit more marketing-y in that sense. However, one of the things that I really can improve on in my work life is project management. It's not a skill that I am naturally born with, to kind of lead a team and set expectations and do that whole thing. And I felt like Insight was a really good place to do the type of thing, as we're working together with a lot of different partners, and obviously they need to be instructed on what's expected from them and kind of like what the brief is, and that was something that I had zero experience with. So I was actually planning on staying in the Insights team for a bit longer and definitely develop that skill, because it's a skill that is going to be very valuable in the future of my career, because eventually, like hopefully, I become a manager and like manage my own team and have all these things going. These skills will be really helpful to be able to leverage and sort of, you know, lead everyone to success. So when this restructure came in, I wasn't necessarily planning on pushing my way out of Insights, because I was willing to stay there for a bit longer and develop that particular skill set before moving into my sort of more numbery, analytical, strategical role, if that makes sense. So slowly but surely, all of the restructure announcements came through, and it also became clear to me that my role was going to go into a different direction than I had hoped, and that direction or track that my role was going to be on was going in a different direction from where I wanted to go with my future career, which in all fairness is kind of unfortunate for me. And it's also a bit of a scary realization that your job is not going where you want it to go. So while this new path of my role made sense within the wider structure of the company, it didn't make sense for me personally. So this resulted in me living in a bit of a limbo, like thinking what was going to be my next move, because I had no idea. Because I really do like the company that I work for and that I did my grad scheme with. Like, I've been with them for a while now and I don't want to leave, yet my job now is not really going in the direction that I want to. I was just living in this sort of bubble filled with question marks. And the only other option I could really think of was trying to push to move into the more numbery, analytical, strategical role that I kind of envisioned myself being in maybe 2 or 3 years from now. So I ended up going with that strategy and trying to figure out if I could sort of fast track my career goals in a way. So long story short, they happened to have an internal opening, so I had to do an internal application for a role that essentially was my dream role. And long story short, it worked out. I got the role. So I'll be moving away from my first ever sort of grown-up position in Insights into RGM, which is Revenue Growth Management. And I am really excited to make this step. And probably not, but if you have followed my graduate scheme journey, you might remember that RGM was actually my first ever rotation, and that's where I absolutely fell in love with it. So it really feels like this kind of full circle moment, especially since it was my kind of like first dip into like corporate life, I suppose, as well as kind of like proving a whole lot of people wrong, because I studied French literature and now I am in a finance job. So oddly, it all feels very much like a full circle moment. So I had multiple reasons why I wanted to share this one, obviously being the fact that I sort of experienced this full circle moment, and I've been sharing a lot of things about my life, and now I have a new job, so I should probably share that for people who watch my grad scheme videos, I suppose. But secondly, I wanted to say a couple of things on the restructure, because I was very, very naive going into it, and lots of people helped me, but I definitely learned some things along the way, because obviously a restructure can be very, very stressful for everyone involved. Like from the moment you have the first announcement all the way to the implementation of the whole thing, it's going to be a stressful period for literally everyone in some way, shape or form, as naturally people dislike change. As much as you might go, oh, but I love change, I thrive on change, sure, fully get it. However, there is this point where you're going to experience a certain level of discomfort, and especially in situations like these where it feels like a lot of things are outside of your control, that level of discomfort is gonna get closer really, really quickly. But besides obviously all of the negative things that come to mind when you think restructure, I actually learned to think about it in a positive way, which is obviously way easier said than done, but it is a massive opportunity to have something that feels outside of your control and make it to something that's inside of your control. So in my case, I managed to sped up the fact that I wanted to be in a more financy, strategical, analytical, numbery role. So I managed to change to a role that I actually find more interesting than the role that I'm currently in. Because in the end, with a restructure, there is movement. People will be moving roles, job descriptions are changing, whole team structures are changing, even like team sizes and teams are changing. The whole thing is kind of changing. And it creates just a lot of movement. And all of this movement might fast track your career, might give you a great new opportunity, might give you an opportunity on a whole different path, but it also might give you the space to adapt and change your current role into something that you like even more. Because in a space where there is so much movement, you can actually push for the things that are your priorities. Like whether that's like a totally new role, which was my case at the end, or just, I don't know, a responsibility that you either want to gain or a responsibility that you want to get rid of. You know, all of this movement creates this space for you to sort of build your own thing. I realize that it might sound very, very fluffy. Do with it what you will. Either way, I would very, very much recommend speaking to your HR, to your team, to your manager, to loads of people involved, to potential teams that you might be interested in joining, and get all of those people's different inputs. And that can be really, really helpful. It's so important to talk with so many people, and I'm so happy that all the people around me push to like talk to HR, talk to my manager, talk to another manager, talk to this person, talk to that person. Like all of that socializing that they sort of forced me to do almost actually meant that I now have a dream job that I didn't think I would have this soon. Yet I am very excited for it to jump straight in and go back to my RDM roots, I suppose. So my advice would be to really approach situations like these actively and not passively. And I found that out the hard way, leaving me with a bit of a sort of limbo situation in between, where I was kind of awaiting it more passively as I figured that, oh, everything would be fine, which it probably would have been, but still, I think there is definitely value in approaching these things more actively. And I think that was my biggest learning in this whole restructure. And obviously approach it with a positive outlook on how you can change things for the better for you and your team and everybody involved in that sense. Because if you're happy in your work, you're more likely to do well, right? So therefore the company should be more happy with it. That might be just my own sort of brainwave. So this was my update. I survived a restructure. I got my quote-unquote dream job. I learned new skills and new things about being in situations like these, because I had never been in one before. And I hope this sort of vague knowledge in a way helps you out as well. And I just really want to share that I am now happy in the new job. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in more videos in the future.